This is one of the more interesting enemies in Forgotten Crossroads, and much like the Shield Warrior, it does teach you something, which is that if an enemy is big and intimidating, it can deal double damage. So you better be careful wandering around all of it. And I really like when game designers place tougher, more intimidating enemies in areas like Forgotten Crossroads, for example. It's an early game area, but I think if all the enemies are just easy, it's not going to be interesting enough to actually be fun. So you place a few enemies like these, and players are like, oh shit, what's that? And it actually makes them think about where they're going, and it reminds them that they have to be careful and methodical about how they approach different encounters. Or if you're a speedrunner, you just jump over their heads. Overall, though, I do really like Husky Guards, so I'm giving this an A tier. Entombed Husks. Everyone hates these enemies. These are the enemies in the crypts and resting grounds, and they're kind of like jump scaring you as they attack you. These enemies make the crypts feel so much more creepy and intimidating, and they just add so much flavor to the area. In general, I like when enemies are designed for very specific purposes, and when they fulfill those purposes really well. And Entombed Husks fulfill their purpose perfectly. They jump scare you, dealing 2 damage. So are these enemies annoying? Yeah, but they fulfill their purpose super well. So this is the first enemy that I'm putting in the S tier. Okay, and next up we have Balder. All they do is sit there until you get close enough, and then they roll in. That's it. But actually, like when you're dealing with other enemies, that roll can be tough to deal with. Kind of reminds me of when I got jump scared by one in a 112% run and died. And also in the speedrun, it's super satisfying. Like when they get spat out by the Elder Balders, kill them before they hit the ground. Balders are a fun enemy, even though they're very simple. I'm actually putting Balder in the A tier. Next up, we have the Elder Balder. Of course, the purpose of this enemy is to teach you to use your damn spells. Speedrunners absolutely hate this enemy because it's a 50-50 chance whether they shoot a Balder, which lets you continue the speedrun, or a Fireball, which forces you to sit there and wait. So this enemy can be a little bit frustrating. If only it just had 45 health, then you could just shoot 3 Fireballs at it and continue on with your life. But it has 60. That means it needs 4 Fireballs, and you can only score 3. So you need to wait for 1 Balder to spawn before you can continue, which again is a 50-50. The enemy's cool, it serves its purpose. As a casual player, you're probably not going to care too much if it wastes a bit of time. But as a speedrunner, oh my god, I'm losing 2 seconds every time it spits a fireball, and that is not cool. This is the first enemy that goes in the F tier. So this is a basic enemy. Green path is basically like a crawl in, except it comes out of the ground and unburrows. Now, definitely adds a lot of flavor to Green Path that you have enemies that are just like in the ground. It's kind of like telling the player, hey, like look at the ground before you progress, because enemies might be in there. Other than that, though, it's a really basic enemy. I'm going to put it in the Okay, next up we have the Moss Fly. This is another fairly basic enemy, but you mostly see this enemy in Queen's Gardens. And I think these enemies are just kind of like flying pogo targets. And that makes them fun because they're enjoyable to pogo, and their movement is super predictable, unlike most flying enemies. They're also kind of like soul batteries, so you can just farm more soul pretty easily. And I love going through a room and just like pogoing off of them to get through the room super fast. So Moss Flies actually go in the A tier for me. Next up, we have Mosskin. These are enemies that are just basic enemies in Green Path. These enemies are kind of similar to like the basic Husks, except they have one big difference, which is that instead of just walking back and forth and headbutting you, they do like a big roll attack. So they're almost like a variant of a Husk, but with a slightly more intimidating basic attack. So I like how they kind of evolve these enemies over time and make them more difficult. I'm going to put Mosskin in the B tier. Alright, next up we have the Crawlid. The Crawlid is the literal Goomba of Hollow Knight. It's the first enemy you see in King's Pass, and it does nothing but walk back and forth. Once it reaches a point where it can't walk anymore, it turns around and continues walking until it can't walk anymore. So it's a very basic enemy, but designed to just like kind of teach you how to use your nails, and then you can jump over things, I guess. Don't really have much to say about them, just like little bugs that you can hit. I'll put the Crawlid in the C tier. Okay, now we have another enemy that we find a lot in Green Path, Volatile Mosskin. This is one of the earlier introductions we have to the infection being in the game, so it's a lot like regular moss pin, except it explodes after it dies. I like that the explosion attack that it does is a pretty big attack, so it really forces you to react to the fact that it's about to explode. Like, even as a speedrunner, if you kill one of these enemies, you want to be careful that you don't get caught in the explosion, but it does give players plenty of time to get out of the way. And one little touch that's cool is that if it falls into acid, it doesn't explode, so they clearly put some thought into that. Sometimes in the 80% speedrun, these guys can be like a little bit before they spawn. Like, you want to pogo them for soul, but if you pogo them, you're not going to land on the ground soon enough to be able to full jump without letting go of the directional input, so you end up losing a bit of time based off that. Just based off that one room, I'm like, I want to give these guys a C tier, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Okay, next up we have the Pool Eater, and given how often these enemies have actually hit me, I can test their names. I think it's kind of funny that they're often placed like next to Georocks, so you'll be farming the Georocks, you'll be enticed by the Georocks, and then all of a sudden you just get bit, especially the one right next to the Stag Station in Green Path, where you try to pick up a journal and one of these guys just bites you. I think they're a fun enemy and they add a lot of flavor. It's just a little jump scare. And we love jump scares. I'm giving this one an A tier. Okay, and next up we have the Squid, of course, a reference to the mosquito. The number of times I've called this guy Vengefly, and my chat has yelled at me for it. I can't count. I know it's not a Vengefly, I just sometimes call them that, and I'm not sorry. One thing I really like about these enemies is that you can manipulate their AI to charge at you, and then you can pogo off. I just love pogoing off and flying in. And I remember the days where fireball skips and speedruns weren't even discovered yet, so you had to use this enemy to skip. This enemy is simple, it does its job, and it's just fun to use for skips. So Squid is going in A tier. Alright, next up we have the Obble. I kind of like that there's multiple variations of the Obble. So you have the boss version of the Obble, the Obble, and you also have the bigger Obbles in the Coliseum. I forgot what they're called. So this is another one of the enemies where I'm mostly just going to let my speedrunner bias pervade. There's that one room, the only room that I encounter this enemy in, right below the Moss Knight in Green Path. There's one spot where I always lose time, where an Obble flies into a ladder. Use their attack when you're trying to like navigate past it, so you have to wait for the attack to finish. This enemy makes me lose time, and I don't like it. That said, I think D tier wouldn't be fair. These guys, I'm putting the Obble in the C tier. Okay, and next up, you actually knew Golka, then you're way too big of a Hollow Knight nerd, but these are the enemies that you see in Green Path. I think they're mostly like on Canyon, and you know, I think if these enemies were a bit tougher, it would dissuade people from going on Canyon. But these enemies are actually just walk past them, and if you don't stop, they'll never hit you. So I don't really think these enemies serve much point. There are a couple spots for Massive Moss Charger, especially in that secret in the room, like for Massive Moss Charger, if I recall correctly, where there's a relic or a Georock. There's like a couple of them that like almost trap you in that spot, but it's almost like unclear how to approach these enemies, because your usual strategy is to just walk past them. So I don't think Golkas are well designed. They do have a funny name, that's why I'm not putting them in the F tier. Putting them in. Okay, next up we have the Moss Charger. This enemy is actually pretty interestingly designed. So it pops up in front of you when you're walking to a spot where it's lying dormant, and then it charges at you. And the first thing that you do doesn't actually deal any damage, it just creates a smaller, vulnerable version that runs away from you until it grows again. And I think that's really cute. Do I think it's like a blast to fight against? No. But the fact that the Moss Charger exists the way it does, it's actually created some like pretty cool speed strats in the 80% speedrun, where collecting soul is so important that you want to do it without stopping. So if you have this enemy that's running away from you, you can keep moving at full speed while collecting soul. You can also collect it Geo after it dies. So I really like this strat, and that strat actually wasn't found until like early 2019, if I recall correctly. So that was about 2 years after the game released. So the fact that these enemies are so unique, I think makes them fun. I guess in terms of a casual playthrough, they're not super interesting, but it does make Green Path a lot more threatening, which without enemies like the Moss Charger and Moss Knights, I don't think Green Path is like a difficult area. So overall, I'm a big fan of the Moss Charger. Also, kind of cute. I'm putting it in the S tier. Okay, next up we have the Moss Knight. So this is a really fun enemy in my opinion. The first time you encounter the Moss Knight is going to be in the Moss Knight Arena, leading up to Hornet. Team Cherry was kind enough to put a bench nearby. This is for people who struggle with it, as well as Lifeblood Cocoons. I think the Moss Knight is a well-designed encounter. The Moss Knight, with its AI, does have a lot of similarities to King's Mold, like with its backstab attack, for example. It's able to throw out really large hitboxes to threaten the player. But the Moss Knight exists at a point in the game where the player has a lot less options to approach it. You're only going to get Vengeful Spirit by the time you reach the Moss Knight. Whereas by the time you reach the King's Mold, you're going to have like Descending Guard, and it's just not going to be threatening. Unfortunately, they have kind of messed up hitboxes on later patches, but on 1.2.1, the Moss Knights are pretty great. Also, something I didn't know for the longest time is that when it does the spin attack, it actually just block that projectile. I have no idea how I didn't know that after so many years of playing this game, but it's really cool that you can do that. But I really like the Moss Knight. It forces you to react to what it's doing. It's a great enemy. I'm putting the Moss Knight in S tier. Okay, next up we have the Mossy Vagabond. Look at this fluffy dude. So this isn't like really much of an enemy. It's more like a lower character. They're kind of meant to show you what happens when the infection gets out. Because they all die. Sorry for the spoilers. Now, if I'm judging them on an enemy tier list, I really can't but they do serve purpose in the game. It's just more lore purpose. And I'm not a lore person, so I'm putting them in the D.
Yes,
Actually, they're pretty cute, so I'm putting them in. They're just Alright, next we have the Durandu. Not to confuse with the Duranda, which we'll be judging next.
Oh, come
So these are the enemies that swim in the acid pools back and forth. You'll find one, for example, in the area to the right and below as Moss Charger. It's the one that you have to wait for to go off of in order to get into Fog Canyon. Now, some people do actually have troubles recognizing the fact that they can use enemies like these to navigate to other places. But I think this enemy is kind of meant to do that. It's like, hey, it's got this hard shell, maybe you should downstrike it. And the fact that like under normal conditions you don't really kill it kind of suggests that it has that purpose. So this is another enemy that's kind of meant to teach you something. Of course, if you're doing something like a randomizer, you always have to wait for this guy. Not that it's like a huge deal. Yeah, I want to give these guys a high ranking alone just based on their name. But yeah, I'm gonna put Durandu the B tier. Alright, and next up we have the Duranda. So this is the variation that flies up and down through the air. This is the enemy that you see a lot of on the way to Shio. It's just kind of like more of a platforming challenge. And once again, I like that they have that hard shell so that they kind of like encourage the players to go off of it. Just like any platforming section in Hollow Knight is nice. I'm glad that Silksong is going to have more platforming sections. And I felt like they got a little bit lazy towards the end of that room and just kind of placed like 2 giant lines of them to offer no challenge to get past. So I don't think I can give this enemy an A tier, so I'm going to give it Alright, and next up we have this or the Benchfly. Once again, it's an enemy that I make very often. The way I remember it is the Benchfly has the same look as the Benchfly King. I actually remember what the Benchfly King looks like. These enemies are just aerial enemies that fly at you once you get close enough to them. And because of how predictable they are, they're very easy to use for skips. If you're one of those filthy people who likes saving grubs, you can use the Benchfly skip for Crossroads to get the grub and same goes for the Mask Shard. There's a lot of ways to use the Benchfly to skip to different places, especially in like randomizers. So I like the fact that this enemy exists. I'm going to put the Benchfly in A tier. Next up we have the Charged Lumifly. So little known fact is that these enemies actually they're not completely static. They always start their attacks at the same time, which is just based off of once you get into a certain range of them, they'll start their attacks. I honestly really like navigating around them in Teacher's Archive in the 80% speedrun, because the movement that you have to do in order to get hit only once is actually a lot of do things like damage tanking on them for some weird strats and randomizer. And on older patches, I don't think it's possible on newer patches, but on older patches, you can actually throw the lightning. That was something that was really cool. I don't think they were doing it on purpose. It might have been like a side effect of a different change. But the fact that you could do that was a lot of fun. I wish they kept doing it. But these enemies offer a pretty unique purpose, and they fulfill that purpose as well. And there's like few enemies that offer actual like platforming challenge because of the fact that you can't kill them. It's all based on so I'm putting Charge the Luna Boy in the A tier. Alright, next we have the be confused with the Umas, which we're doing next. These are just really basic small enemies that always die. And they're kind of like flavor enemies almost, because without them the teacher's archive and the area surrounding it would just be super empty. But they're also like hitboxes that you can fall onto and take damage. It's kind of nice to have them just because you can re-enter the room and they respawn. So it's nice to be able to use them to farm souls if you need to, although I don't think that's their main purpose. That said, it's just an enemy that sits there and given I have a ranking, like at least let's just sit there. I'm giving the C tier. It does its job, but it's just too basic to give a higher ranking. Alright, now we have the famous Uma. So this is the enemy that makes Fog Canyon Fog Canyon. If Fog Canyon didn't have Umas, it wouldn't be Fog Canyon anymore. And in my opinion, the physics of the explosive object that spawns after you kill it is some of the most fun physics in the game. Of course, a lot of that fun is ruined by the fact that you take double damage from it and die. But I think the reason for that is Team Cherry wanted to be like, hey, you really shouldn't be going this way. You should be navigating to the other parts of Green Path, not going through this area where you're taking double damage from these giant explosions. But I really like the fact that these kinds of enemies exist because they make the world feel dangerous. And making the world feel